Hi YouTube, Anne here. I was just having kind of a little freak out moment / conversation with God, and I wanted to share something that helped me during it. A little bit of background. I'm in a city right now. I was visiting a friend in another city. It's a very large city. I won't say which city, but it's one of the major cities of the United States, and my home is maybe about 2 hours away from it, in a city with about 500,000 people, but this big city has several million people probably. Anyway, I haven't been here in a few months to the big city, and I noticed something that's freaking me out. If you don't know what Agenda 21 is, aka Agenda 2030, please research it. In short, it is the agenda of the New World Order. It's being pushed by the United Nations. They use really happy, fluffy language in their proclamation about it. But if you read between the lines, it's very dark. Their agenda is that by 2030, they want the world to be sustainable. No more poverty, no more global warming, no more pollution, things like that. And it sounds good. The problem is that in order to do that, they require 90% world depopulation. That is their plan. Go research it. They will force everyone into the big cities. The nickname is Stack 'em and Pack 'em. They will build these cheap little apartments, these cube-shaped units. They're really tiny, and they'll shove everyone in it. The people who survive, that, of course, the 10% who survive, they'll shove everyone into these big apartments in the cities in the name of protecting the environment. Cars will be made illegal, probably. Public transportation will be the only transportation, light rail systems, subway systems, things like that. And there will be these Stack 'em and Pack 'em apartments, where the fortunate few who survive will be so grateful to live in these cheap little shoddy tiny apartments. I haven't seen a Stack 'em and Pack 'em apartment yet, and I saw them today, and that's why I'm freaking out. I've seen videos on YouTube of people in like Portland, Oregon, or like LA, and they're filming these really square Stack 'em and Pack 'em apartments. They're popping up everywhere. They're being built everywhere. These really cheap, quickly built apartments. And I was in this big city today and I saw them. And they went up in just the span of maybe the past few months. Like a lot of them. They were like on every block. I know a lot about construction. I know a lot about building quality. I almost died of black mold poisoning 5 years ago. And I learned how to inspect buildings after that. I actually have my own business doing it. I know cheap construction when I see it. And these are all cheap construction. I was in the city actually doing a job. I have a friend who hired me to inspect her apartment. She lives, I didn't know it until I went there, she lives in one of these Stack 'em and Pack 'em apartments. And I got very sick in her apartment. The VOCs, volatile organic compounds, were extremely high. That's the name for the chemicals that are in the cheap building materials. They're toxic to humans. The paint, when you smell like that chemical smell in paint, that's a VOC. The chemical smell in particle board, that's a VOC. The chemical smell in your hardwood floor, that's a VOC. Those are all toxic, actually. And so when you live in this tiny apartment that's just no airflow and all these chemicals jammed into it and cheaply built so mold grows on the walls, because mold is in 80 to 90% of buildings due to shoddy, quick construction and perfect mold food with our cheap building materials. This apartment, her apartment, was only 3 years old. It was built 3 years ago, and I got sick. There's mold and VOCs, a lot of them in that apartment. You can't see it usually. It's behind the walls, but do some research. The doctor-given number is 80 to 90% of modern buildings have mold in them. And if you were to tear out the walls, you would see the particle mold in the frame and the insulation rotting. Anyway, I think God sent me to this city on purpose. My friend lived in a suburb, and my GPS took me a ridiculous route home. I was like, why is my GPS taking me this route? This is not the fastest route home. It adds like an extra hour onto my trip. I think this is why. to see these stack 'em and pack 'ems. This is real. This is happening. They're building these for Agenda 2030. They're going to say, oh, we need to live in a green city where everyone only has like 100 square feet to live in to protect the environment, and, you know, cars are illegal and you have to take public transportation as this walkable city. It's going to sound radical, guys. But there's a lot of false science that's floating around. Global warming is a myth. The Earth has natural fluctuations. Most of the issues we're seeing are being induced by mega companies pushing global warming with their chemicals they spray into the air. That being said, there is enough land in the world for every human in the world to have an acre of land in the state of Texas and farm that land and have their own house on that land, and every human on Earth can have an acre of land in the state of Texas to farm, and we won't run out. The entire population of the world can live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I think it's Fort Lauderdale, Florida, comfortably. There is no overpopulation. It's a myth to get us to agree to be depopulated, because Satanists run the world, Satanists run the government, and Satan wants to hurt God by killing his people. What better way than to say there's too many people and to beg us to be depopulated? Anyway, the stack 'em and pack 'em apartments are going in fast. They are being built fast. They are toxic. They are filled with VOCs and mold. I've been in one. I know also just based on the construction techniques and the building techniques. Like, there's only one window. One of the ways I can recognize these stack 'em and pack 'ems even from the outside is the way they're built. They're square buildings with, you know, maybe a few features on it, but each apartment is like one unit, and they're small, and they have one little balcony and one like window. Now, they don't have windows at an angle, so what happens is you can't get cross ventilation. There's only one wall that has a window or a balcony, and so without cross ventilation, the mold and the VOCs are very concentrated because you can't get fresh air. And it's all part of the agenda. A sick and weak population is easy to control. You know, it's the art of war. Overwhelm your enemy so much that he can't fight you back. Overwhelm them with sickness, with debt, with fatigue, until they're docile. So I was honestly freaking out driving through the city, seeing stack 'em and pack 'ems on every block corner, and I just had to pause and go to God and say, I'm scared. This is freaky. I know I shouldn't be scared, because I have nothing to fear, I have you, but this is freaking me out, God. And then the thought popped into my head, calm down. You're more blessed than the majority of people in this situation. You know how this ends. I'm blessed. I know how this ends. I can't say, thus saith God told me that, but I'm pretty sure it was God. Because, and at the very least, it's a godly concept. Wisdom that the Lord has given me. I know how this ends. I don't have to fear when the world ends, because the world will end soon. I'm not saying like next week. I'm not saying next year. Probably in my lifetime, though. And I'm 25, so. If the world should end even tomorrow, I have nothing to fear. I know that this life is temporary. This life is not my real life. This plane of existence, this earth, these struggles I go through, this is my test. This is my temporary blink of an eye to test if I'm a good person or not. And my real life starts when I wake up in the next life. In heaven. If I get to heaven, if I'm a good enough person. Even I don't know if I'm going to heaven. But I'm aiming for it. And I'd say I'm much more likely to go than the average person right now. I'm not trying to be vain or brag. I'm just saying God has been teaching me to work on my soul and to get sin out of my life. Anyone can do it. You can do it. I ask you to do it. I beg you to encourage you to do it. Get sin out of your life. Because you will not enter heaven with sin in your life. But if the world should end, I have much less to fear than the average person. I will not mourn when this life ends. I do not fear death. death is only the transition. It's only the wake up into the next life. It's a scary concept to be an atheist. I don't know how anyone does it. To think like you just poof out of existence when you die. Search your heart, you know that's not how it works. We're all programmed with this innate knowledge that we're an eternal soul and we can last past this life. So if this world should end, if this life should end tomorrow, I'm not afraid, because I know that my real life starts in the next life, in heaven, or in hell if I do too many bad things. But I'm aiming for heaven. And so I just wanted to share that word of encouragement to anyone else. Also to spread the warning. This is not a prophecy, disclaimer. I'm not saying God said this is going to happen in 1 or 2 years. I do not have a direct word of knowledge from God about this, okay? That being said, I've been studying this, and I have logic. I've been studying end times